He stole my $5,000 deposit and flew to the Bahamas. So I welded his $12,000 tools into my foundation. I was staring down into a 10-gallon bucket of industrial-grade epoxy, my pulse hammering in my ears, calculating the exact tensile strength needed to fuse $12,000 of stolen tools to the Earth's crust. My contractor had taken my money and vanished to the tropics, but he made one fatal mistake. He left his life's work sitting squarely in my blast zone. The fine, white powder of pulverized gypsum drywall has a malicious way of invading your sanity. It coats your hardwood floors, it settles deep into the woven fabric of your living room couch, and it even finds its way into your morning coffee. I could feel the chalky grit grinding against my teeth every single time I took a breath. I am a senior mobile developer. My entire professional existence is built upon a rigid foundation of logic, architectural order, and a militant zero-bug tolerance. When a piece of code fails to execute, I isolate the rogue variable, I diagnose the fatal flaw, and I eliminate it from the system. I do not tolerate chaos. I do not do unresolved errors. And I certainly do not accept brushing my teeth over my kitchen sink garbage disposal because my master bathroom looks like it took a direct, catastrophic hit from an artillery shell. Enter Mike. Mike was a guy who talked fast, smiled wide, and wore immaculate Carhartt gear that had clearly never seen a single day of actual, grueling labor. He drove a heavily modified, lifted Ford F-250 that gleamed aggressively in my driveway, and he carried a battered clipboard like a tactical shield. When he walked through my home to bid on the master bathroom remodel, he said exactly what I wanted to hear. He threw around industry jargon with practiced ease, talking smoothly about waterproof Schluter membranes, load-bearing laminated veneer lumber headers, and luxury brushed nickel rainfall fixtures. He looked me dead in the eye, gave me a firm, calloused handshake, and demanded a $5,000 materials and logistics deposit to lock in my spot on his highly exclusive, severely backlogged schedule. I wired the funds directly to his business account the very next morning. The initial demolition phase was an absolute masterclass in aggressive, unfiltered destruction. For exactly 2 days, Mike and a rotating, nameless cast of day laborers tore my bathroom down to the structural studs. They brutally ripped out the double vanity, smashed the vintage ceramic tiles into jagged, hazardous shards, and pulled up the decaying subfloor until absolutely nothing remained but exposed wooden joists, copper pipes, and a massive slab of raw foundation concrete. The noise was deafening, the progress was blindingly fast, and I was thrilled. And then, the music stopped. The heavy sledgehammers went completely silent. The gleaming F-250 stopped pulling into my driveway. By day 3, the silence was deafening. I called his cell phone. It went straight to a generic voicemail. By day 4, I sent a detailed text message asking for a status update. Left on read. By day 7, I felt the heat rising in my neck and my vision went blurry with rage as I stood in the doorway, staring at the gaping, dusty crater permanently attached to my master bedroom. I wasn't just annoyed, I was actively dealing with a critical system failure. My home, my secure environment, was utterly compromised. Mike clearly thought he was dealing with a soft-handed, keyboard-tapping tech worker who would just heave a defeated sigh, call an overpriced lawyer, and wait 18 agonizing months for a small claims court date that would ultimately go nowhere. He didn't understand the fundamental nature of my mindset. To me, he wasn't just a bad contractor. He was a malicious, parasitic bug actively draining resources from my system. And I was about to debug my house. I didn't just wait by the phone for an apology. I cracked my knuckles, booted up my custom-built desktop rig, and went to war. OSINT open-source intelligence is essentially the dark art of finding digital breadcrumbs that arrogant people mistakenly think they've hidden. I started with his basic LLC filing on the Secretary of State's website. The state business registry gave me the name of his registered agent, which quickly led me to a commercial P.O. box. I ran a cross-reference script against a local county property tax database, filtering for his last name, which instantly bypassed the P.O. box and handed me a residential address in the suburbs. From there, it was absolute child's play to pull the public voter registration records for that specific address, revealing the name of a 24-year-old woman registered at the same residence. Her name was Chloe. Mike's own social media profiles were locked down incredibly tight, set to strict private modes, effectively scrubbing any trace of his personal, day-to-day life from the public eye. He knew how to hide from angry clients. But Chloe? Chloe was a wildly aspiring micro-influencer desperate for engagement. Her Instagram was a wide-open, unredacted public ledger. I created a burner account, populated it with a stock photo of a local real estate development, and started systematically scrolling through her recent feed. There it was, uploaded exactly 12 hours ago. A pristine, high-definition live from Nassau story. The camera slowly panned over crystal-clear turquoise waters, blindingly white sand, and a ridiculously expensive luxury cabana. And right there, perfectly centered in the frame, wearing designer-mirrored sunglasses and a smug, relaxed grin, was Mike. They were clinking $20 tropical cocktails, toasting to the camera, celebrating life on a $5,000 luxury island retreat. My $5,000 $2,000. He wasn't at the local supply house fiercely haggling over Italian porcelain tiles. He was heavily funding his romantic, tropical getaway with my stolen deposit, while I was literally spitting mint toothpaste into my kitchen sink. The sheer, unadulterated audacity of it burned through my veins like battery acid. But as I sat there in the dark, unnatural glow of my dual monitors, my eyes drifted from the digital evidence on the screen to the dark hallway, looking toward the ruined, drafty bathroom. In his desperate, greedy haste to catch his first-class flight to the Bahamas, Mike had left something incredibly vital behind. Sitting directly in the dead center of the concrete subfloor, covered in a thin layer of drywall dust, were two towering, heavy-duty, rolling stainless steel toolboxes. These weren't your average, flimsy weekend warrior plastic kits from a discount hardware store. These were massive, multi-drawer, industrial pack-out monoliths packed to the absolute brim with highly specialized, professional-grade gear. Hilti T60 ATC/EVR combi hammers, Milwaukee M18 fuel impact drivers, dual-bevel sliding compound miter saws, precision laser levels, pneumatic framing nailers, and dozens of insanely expensive, high-capacity lithium-ion batteries. I had watched him meticulously load them in on day one. He had proudly called it his life's work. A highly conservative estimate put the street value of the rolling boxes and the high-end tools inside at an easy $12,000. I walked slowly into the dusty framing of the bathroom and placed my bare hand firmly on the cold, red steel of the top box. I tested the weight. It was heavy. So incredibly, densely heavy. For a brief, fleeting moment, I thought about dragging them out to the curb and leaving them for the scrap scavengers. I thought about instantly selling them on Craigslist to recoup my stolen money. But my developer brain, trained to look for hidden traps and secondary protocols, immediately kicked in. I grabbed a flashlight and started methodically inspecting the heavy aluminum handles, the hidden interlocking compartments, and the dark underside of the heavy metal lids. Tucked neatly beneath the reinforced bottom drawer of the primary box, heavily secured with a thick, black industrial zip tie, I found it. A matte black Milwaukee tick and integrated, battery-powered Bluetooth tracking tag. Mike wasn't stupid. He fully understood the massive street value of his gear. If I rolled these heavy boxes out of my front door, out of the invisible, digital geofenced perimeter he had undoubtedly set up on his smartphone, a high-priority theft alert would instantly trigger, pinging him directly in his Nassau cabana. He could immediately call the local police precinct, claim I maliciously stole his livelihood, and suddenly I'm the one facing felony grand larceny charges while he plays the victim. It was a digital leash designed to keep his collateral perfectly safe while he robbed me blind. I smiled, a slow, dark grin spreading across my face. The burning heat in my neck completely dissipated, instantly replaced by a cold, calculating, predatory calm. The tools weren't going anywhere. In fact, I was going to make absolutely, mathematically certain they never, ever left this exact spot. But that's when the real bombshell dropped. I walked back to my glowing laptop, determined to dig even deeper into Mike's fraudulent business footprint. I opened the original email thread where he had sent me the before photos of my own bathroom during the initial demolition phase. I extracted the high-resolution images, stripped the EXAF data, and threw the raw image files into a powerful reverse search engine, just to see if his LLC was operating under any hidden aliases. The search algorithm crawled the web and immediately pinged a direct, 100% match hit. The link redirected me to a sleek, aggressively marketed, heavily optimized Squarespace website operating under a completely different corporate name. The massive, bold header text read, "Masterclass in Bathroom Flips, Turn Trash into Cash." I scrolled down the beautifully designed landing page, my jaw clenching tighter and tighter with every single pixel. Mike wasn't just a lazy, opportunistic bad contractor, he was a full-time, highly organized predator. He was actively using the before photos of my gutted, destroyed bathroom as premium promotional material. He had slapped a massive, semi-transparent watermark directly over the image of my exposed copper plumbing and framed my ruined home as a successful case study for his premium online course. He was charging $2,500 for a series of generic video tutorials, essentially teaching other wannabe scammers how to strip a house to the studs, pocket the massive logistics deposit, and run away without legal consequence. He was literally using my intense misery, my sanctuary, my destroyed home, to scam 20 other innocent people simultaneously. The rules of engagement had officially, irreversibly changed. This wasn't about getting a simple refund anymore. This wasn't about small claims court. This was about total, uncompromising system destruction. I didn't go to a generic big box hardware store. I needed highly specialized, professional-grade advice. I picked up my phone and called Dave, an old college roommate who now worked as a senior structural engineer designing complex, load-bearing concrete supports for commercial high-rises. I quickly explained the bizarre situation, the exact surface area of the raw concrete floor, the estimated gross weight of the steel boxes, and the precise, measured dimensions of the heavy-duty caster wheels. "I don't just want a strong adhesive bond, Dave," I explained, staring intensely at the rough blueprints I had rapidly sketched out on a notepad. "I want a permanent, molecular fusion to the concrete subfloor. I want these toolboxes to literally become a structural foundation of the house." Dave laughed, a deep, rumbling sound through the phone receiver. "You're talking about industrial-grade, two-part structural epoxy resin. The exact same chemical compound we use to permanently anchor steel rebar into highway bridge supports. But you can't just pour it. You need to meticulously calculate the exothermic reaction temperatures and the maximum tensile strength." He patiently walked me through the strict mathematical formula. Bond strength, denoted by the Greek letter sigma, a mathematically guarantee that the massive force required to break the chemical bond would completely exceed the structural integrity of the steel toolbox itself. I needed to create a massive surface area and an unbreakable, reinforced matrix. I immediately drove to a specialized, wholesale concrete supply warehouse on the industrial edge of town. I didn't buy a cute little plastic tube of superglue. I bought 10 massive gallons of clear industrial epoxy resin. I also bought heavy, woven rolls of shredded fiberglass mesh, and I scavenged a dozen thick, hardened steel rebar scraps directly from the hazardous demolition pile sitting in my front yard. I wasn't just gluing wheels to a floor. I was engineering a composite matrix. For 3 days, the house was eerily silent except for the constant, low humming of my heavy-duty ventilation fans. I was quietly, methodically preparing the battlefield. Then, it finally happened. Today, Thursday, March 26, 2026, at exactly 4:24 p.m. Asia/Karachi time, as I was sitting at my kitchen island reviewing code, my phone buzzed violently against the marble counter. It was a text message from Mike. "Yo, schedule is a mess. My cousin T-Bone is coming by in 20 minutes to grab my boxes. Leave the back door unlocked." I didn't reply. I didn't type a single character. I didn't need to. I had already spent the last 3 grueling hours executing my architectural design. I had physically dragged the incredibly heavy toolboxes to the exact, measured center of the bathroom floor, positioning them right where the luxury walk-in shower was legally permitted to be. I locked the heavy steel casters into place. I mixed the 2-part industrial epoxy in massive, heavy-duty 5-gallon buckets, using a powerful corded drill attached to a steel paddle mixer. The raw chemical smell was absolutely overpowering, a sharp, metallic odor that burned the back of my throat. As the 2 distinct chemical parts activated and combined, I could actually feel the intense, radiating heat coming through the thick plastic of the bucket, the violent exothermic reaction Dave had specifically warned me about. The clear liquid was basically boiling on a molecular level, reaching temperatures close to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Wearing heavy rubber respirators and thick chemical gloves, I poured the thick, viscous, incredibly hot clear liquid straight into the metal base of the rolling cabinets. I didn't stop there. I poured it directly through the heavy-duty bottom drawer slides, completely and irreversibly flooding the lower compartments. I carefully layered in the shredded fiberglass mesh, aggressively pressing it down into the liquid, creating a tightly woven reinforcement net deep within the curing resin. Then, I took a heavy sledgehammer and violently drove the hardened steel rebar scraps straight through the thin bottom metal of the toolboxes, driving them deep into the natural pits of the concrete floor, using the rapid-setting epoxy to permanently weld the jagged metal, the melting plastic wheels, and the foundational concrete into one solid, indivisible monolith. By the time the timer hit 20 minutes, the violent chemical reaction had flashed. It had rapidly cured into a massive, translucent block of impenetrable, crystal-clear armor. The tools weren't just stuck. Under the strict definitions of physics and structural engineering, they were now legally and physically an integral part of the house's load-bearing foundation. A heavily dented, rust-covered Chevy Silverado pulled aggressively into my driveway. The heavy doors slammed shut. Heavy, thudding footsteps crunched up the concrete walkway, and the front door, which I had intentionally left unlocked, pushed forcefully open. "Hey, I'm here for Mike's gear," a gruff, booming voice echoed aggressively through the main hallway. Enter T-Bone. He was an absolute mountain of a man, wearing a grease-stained, oversized hoodie, heavily faded jeans, and scuffed steel-toed work boots. He walked with the heavy, arrogant confidence of a guy who was intimately used to intimidating people and taking whatever he wanted by sheer physical force. He didn't even bother to look at me sitting quietly at the kitchen island with my glowing laptop. He just let out a low grunt and stomped straight past me, making a direct line toward the master bathroom. I took a very slow, highly deliberate sip of my black coffee, turned my ergonomic chair around, and quietly watched the show. T-Bone walked heavily into the dusty, destroyed room, reached out his massive hands, grabbed the heavy aluminum handle of the $6,000 main box, and leaned his body weight back, fully expecting the oiled wheels to roll smoothly over the raw concrete. Absolutely nothing happened. He frowned deeply, his thick eyebrows knitting together in sheer confusion. He aggressively adjusted his grip, wrapping his thick fingers tightly around the metal. He firmly planted his steel-toed boots, bent his thick knees, and threw his entire massive body weight backward, pulling with every single ounce of strength he possessed. The thick veins visibly bulged in his red neck. The muscles in his back strained against his hoodie. The toolbox didn't budge a single, microscopic microscopic millimeter. It didn't even creak. It didn't rattle. It was as if the heavy steel had organically grown deep, unyielding roots straight down into the earth's crust. What the hell? T-Bone muttered under his breath, breathing heavily. He aggressively walked around to the side of the massive box and delivered a vicious, full-force, swinging kick directly to the bottom corner, fully intending to violently jar the locked casters loose. A sickening, incredibly loud crack echoed sharply through the empty room. But it wasn't the metal toolbox breaking. It was the distinct sound of T-Bone's steel-toed boot violently rebounding off the hardened, completely unforgiving composite matrix. He instantly let out a sharp, high-pitched yelp, hopping backward desperately on one foot, his face violently twisting in sudden, agonizing pain. "What did you do to these boxes?" he screamed, his face flushed bright red with a mixture of intense pain and sudden fury. I stood up slowly from the kitchen island, calmly picked up my laptop, and strolled casually into the dusty bathroom. I held out a high-resolution, full-color printout. It was the crystal-clear photo of Mike and Chloe lounging in Nassau, happily clinking their expensive glasses, with the digital geotag and the precise timestamp clearly visible at the bottom. "I'm not leaving without the boxes," T-Bone hissed, aggressively stepping toward me, violently glaring while desperately rubbing his deeply bruised foot. "Try harder," I whispered, holding his furious gaze with absolute, dead-eyed calm. "Tell Mike I've pushed a permanent update to his hardware. Since he made the executive decision to use my $5,000 for a luxury tropical vacation, I've decided to treat his precious tools as collateral as a service. If he ever wants them back, he'll need to hire a commercial jackhammer crew, retain a dedicated legal team, and personally hand me my $5,000 in cash, plus a strictly enforced 15% storage interest fee. Otherwise, I'm laying my waterproof membrane tomorrow morning. I am tiling right over his life's work, and I am making them a permanent, load-bearing feature of my brand new walk-in shower." T-Bone stared blankly at the colorful photo in my hand. He slowly turned his head and stared at the massive, indestructible block of translucent resin perfectly locking the wheels to the raw foundation. He looked back at my face, the crushing realization slowly dawning in his dark eyes that he was completely, utterly outmatched on a level he couldn't even comprehend. Without uttering another single word, he turned his massive frame, limped heavily out of the house, slammed the front door, and aggressively drove away, his tires squealing on the asphalt. The subsequent fallout was instantaneous and utterly explosive. Less than an hour later, my cell phone rang violently. The caller ID flashed a local number. I answered it. It was Mike's brother-in-law, who was apparently moonlighting as his heavily discounted, highly aggressive legal team. "You are permanently destroying his livelihood," the lawyer screamed directly through the phone speaker, his voice cracking with unfiltered panic and rage. "You have absolutely no legal right to touch his private property. This is malicious, intentional destruction of property. We are calling the local police right now. We are filing a mechanic's lien against your house, and we are dragging you into civil court." I already had my own highly paid, incredibly vicious attorney on standby. We didn't even flinch. I conferenced my lawyer into the call, and he smoothly countered with a direct, devastatingly precise citation of the local municipal building code regarding the abandoned equipment and abandoned contracts clause. Since Mike had completely gutted my primary residence, legally breached his signed contract by fleeing the state with my deposit, and negligently left heavy, hazardous machinery sitting completely unsecured in the middle of an active residential hazard zone, the tools were officially, legally classified as interfering with the safety and completion of the primary residence. I hadn't destroyed his property. Under the strict, unforgiving letter of the law, I had merely stabilized the unsafe site to prevent severe physical injury. Checkmate. But I wasn't done. The clean legal victory wasn't enough. I needed to permanently patch the bug so it could never, ever exploit another innocent user again. I had strategically set up a high-definition 4K camera in the upper corner of the bathroom long before I started the epoxy pour. I took the raw, unedited footage of me meticulously mixing the boiling epoxy, layering the woven fiberglass, violently driving the steel rebar through the plastic casters, and the final, absolutely glorious cinematic shot of T-Bone violently kicking a solid block of concrete and resin. I loaded the footage into my editing software, cut it down into a fast-paced, high-energy, perfectly timed time-lapse, threw a massive trending audio track over it, and proudly posted it to TikTok. It didn't just go viral, it completely detonated. Within 4 short hours, the video effortlessly smashed through 2 million organic views. Exhausted construction workers, meticulous structural engineers, and endlessly angry scammed homeowners universally united in the chaotic comments section. But the real, devastating magic happened when the hyper-obsessive Reddit community got fully involved. It took the internet sleuths exactly 45 minutes to digitally cross-reference my viral video with Mike's highly advertised, fraudulent masterclass website. They mercilessly flooded his premium promotional pages, ruthlessly debunked his completely fake testimonials, and effectively DDoS'd his course registration links. They successfully weaponized the social algorithm, viciously spamming his site with thousands of comments branding him the Bahama Bandit. Mike's personal cell phone number was rapidly leaked to the public. His girlfriend Chloe's precious Instagram was intensely besieged by thousands of angry comments until she completely panicked and deleted her entire account. The mounting digital pressure was entirely suffocating, relentlessly aggressive, and completely inescapable. He was brutally forced to pull the plug on the $2,500 masterclass scam before the state attorney general could officially catch wind of the rapidly mounting wire fraud allegations. His entire, carefully constructed empire of lies burned entirely to the ground in a single, chaotic afternoon. By day 3 of the relentless viral storm, Mike's immense arrogance finally broke under the crushing pressure. He was forced to realize the cold, hard, mathematical truth. To physically retrieve his $12,000 in specialized tools, he would have to spend thousands to hire an industrial demolition crew to come into my house with a massive diamond-tipped concrete saw, physically cut out a massive chunk of my foundation, and essentially destroy the entire bottom half of his expensive toolboxes in the violent process. And legally, he would still owe me $5,000. He officially surrendered. We quickly drew up a legally binding, ironclad settlement. To successfully avoid a very real, very imminent felony grand larceny charge for transporting my stolen deposit across state lines under completely false pretenses, Mike officially signed over the total, unconditional legal ownership of the toolboxes and every single piece of high-end equipment inside them directly to me. Furthermore, he executed an immediate, non-reversible bank wire transfer, returning my $5,000 in full. I sat quietly at my kitchen island and watched the cleared funds officially hit my bank account. It was the absolute most satisfying digital notification I had ever received on my phone. But I still had two massive, incredibly heavy stainless steel monoliths permanently anchored to my bathroom floor. It took me 4 entire days of absolutely excruciating physical labor, a specialized diamond-tipped angle grinder, and a very careful, incredibly chemically intensive solvent cleaning process to finally cut the heavy metal boxes loose and slowly dissolve the upper layers of the hardened epoxy matrix. I managed to perfectly salvage 90% of the internal tools entirely unharmed. I systematically photographed every single red Hilti hammer, every pristine Milwaukee driver, and every high-capacity battery charger, and I sold them individually on a secondary contractor market to local, highly reputable tradesmen who actually did honest, hard work. I used the massive, unexpected digital profits from the tool sale to seamlessly hire a real, fully vetted, highly bonded professional contractor. He didn't ask for a ridiculous, upfront logistics deposit. He just showed up on time, meticulously laid down perfectly level Italian porcelain tile, expertly installed the luxury brushed nickel rainfall showerhead, and proudly handed me the keys to my brand new sanctuary. I now have a beautiful master bathroom that is, quite literally, rock solid. The oppressive drywall dust is finally gone from my home. The architectural code is completely clean. The malicious bug has been permanently, aggressively eradicated from the system. But as I stand quietly in my pristine, perfectly tiled shower, feeling the warm, high-pressure water wash away the last lingering remnants of the stress, I sometimes stop and think about Mike, sitting somewhere in a cheap apartment without a single power drill to his name, helplessly watching his entire masterclass empire turn to ash. Am I the monster here, or did he get exactly what he deserved?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.